Welcome to The Explainer. Right now, there's a huge shakeup happening with Australia's environmental laws, and it's creating a whole new world of complexity for farmers and landholders. So today, we're going to break down exactly what these changes mean on the ground and why they've kicked off such a high-stakes battle.
All right, let's get into it. First, we'll try to make sense of this new regulatory maze. Then we'll look at how data from your own farm is being used as a detection tool. We'll talk about the real burdens this puts on farmers, give you a practical guide to stay in the safe zone, and wrap up with the massive legal fight that's bubbling up over property rights.
Okay, first things first. We really need to wrap our heads around just how big a shift this is. You know, the old way of doing things, where getting the green light from the state was basically all you needed? Yeah, well, that's gone. And what's replaced it is a whole lot more complicated. The best way to picture it is like a three-layer stack. At the very bottom, that's you, the activity happening on your farm. The middle layer is the state system, say getting approval from local land services in New South Wales. But now there's this new top layer, the Commonwealth system. And here's the kicker. It has the power to just override everything below it.
And that's the real gut punch here. You can do everything by the book, follow all the state rules, get that official approval, and the federal government can still come in at any time and just shut your project down. Any sense of security, of certainty, it's pretty much out the window.
So you might be asking, how on earth are they enforcing this new federal power? Well, it all comes down to a really powerful new engine, and that engine is data. Your data from your farm. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. For years, right, farmers have been sharing data with groups like Landcare, totally voluntarily, for good conservation work. But now, under these new laws, that very same data can be pulled together, centralized into a new federal body, which then hands it straight over to a new national EPA. So what was once cooperative data has basically been turned into regulatory intelligence. And what that means is, compliance isn't just about someone showing up for an audit every few years. Nope. Now the system can automatically flag your property. It can use satellite images to spot land clearing, check databases for threatened species, or even act on a tip-off from an NGO. You could be under investigation before you even know it, without a single person ever stepping foot on your property.
So this new system of constant, data-driven surveillance, well, it's creating some really significant burdens for farmers. And I'm not just talking about abstract ideas here. We can actually put numbers on this. Real costs in both time and, you guessed it, money.
The National Farmers Federation, the NFF, they haven't been mincing their words with the government. They're saying their members are finding these new self-assessment processes just incredibly confusing and time-consuming. It's becoming a huge roadblock to just getting on with the daily business of running a farm.
Just think about that number for a second. 70 hours. That's almost 2 full work weeks, all for a single self-assessment, just to figure out if what you're planning to do is okay under these new federal rules. It's a lot.
And what if it all gets too complicated and you have to call in an expert? Well, the NFF reckons that to hire a consultant who can actually navigate this maze for you, you're looking at a bill of around 25 grand. Ouch.
Now, the whole federal system really boils down to this one key idea, impacting a matter of national environmental significance, or MENS for short. Basically, if what you're doing is seen as having a significant impact on something like a threatened species habitat, that's the trigger. That's when the federal government gets to step in.
And this is where the complexity really becomes a minefield. It's not just one rule you have to watch out for. There are apparently 18 different ways you can trigger a federal investigation. It could be something as simple as a mismatch between maps, or an indirect impact downstream, or even just the timing of your work clashing with a bird's breeding season. It's a lot to keep track of.
So, with this minefield of potential triggers, how can farmers possibly manage the risk? How do you stay out of trouble? Well, let's look at some practical advice on how to create what's being called a safe envelope for your work.
The general rule of thumb seems to be pretty clear. If you're working within your existing, already cleared footprint, you're probably safe. But the second you look to expand that footprint, we're talking clearing remnant bush, taking out paddock trees, working near creeks, that's the danger zone. That's what's now considered high risk.
So here's a really simple traffic light system you can use. Before you start anything, ask yourself, is this land already cleared with zero native vegetation coming out? If yes, you're probably on a green light, safe to go. Now, what if you're dealing with some regrowth or you're near a creek? That's an amber light. You need to slow down and get some advice. And if you're clearing any native vegetation or messing with water flow, that is a hard red light. Stop.
That's a high-risk move that is almost guaranteed to get you on the federal radar.
But this huge power grab by the federal government isn't just being accepted lying down. Oh no, it's actually kicked the door wide open for a massive, high-stakes constitutional fight, one that farming groups have been gearing up for decades.
And this is where we get into the really clever legal stuff. See, there's a critical difference between the Commonwealth and the states. Under the Constitution, if the Commonwealth acquires your property, it has to pay you fair compensation. But the states, they can generally just restrict how you use your land through regulations, and they don't have to pay you a cent. For years, it was the states doing all the restricting, so farmers were left high and dry.
So in the past, legal challenges didn't work because you couldn't draw a straight line from the state rules to the Commonwealth. But that's all changed. Now, the Commonwealth isn't just influencing things from a distance, it's taking the wheel, taking direct control. And farming groups are arguing that this is basically a regulatory acquisition. They're saying the government is taking rights without taking the land itself. And if the courts buy that argument, the Commonwealth might just have to open its wallet.
Okay, I know that was a lot to get through, so let's just quickly recap the key things you really need to take away from all this.
So, here's the bottom line. The rules of the game have totally changed. That new 3-layer system means state approval just isn't enough anymore. Your own farm data is now being used for federal compliance. The cost of just trying to follow the rules is huge, in both time and money. The safest thing you can do? Stick to your existing footprint. And last but not least, a massive legal showdown over compensation is officially on.
And that leaves us with one last really big question. In this push to grab more control, has the federal government accidentally backed itself into a corner? Have they created the very legal trigger that could force them to do the one thing they've avoided for decades? Actually pay farmers for the environmental good they provide for the whole country.